COVID has taught us a lot with remote learning. I'm putting up air quotes, that to engage these kids is a lot harder. A lot of parents are really respecting teachers right now because they're like, oh, I thought, okay, this is not a joke. But I think a lot of parents, particularly Black parents, are saying, what was I sending my kids to every day? You know, what was the education that they were actually receiving and how is it benefiting them? Because we have these metrics. You know, you have to get this high school diploma, then you have to get this college degree, and this college degree will get you a job. This is what we're taught. Except you get out into the world and you could have all of these degrees and skills and not get a job. You could have none of these degrees and skills and be Zuckerberg. You know, you could be a degenerate and be a billionaire. You could be Bezos. Do you know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, I think we now have to reimagine for ourselves. We literally are handing our children over mostly to a system that has never really seen them or respected them, unless it comes through individual teachers, individual educators, you know, but it's not a system. So you're creating a system. Tell us about this system that you've created.
Right. So I'm currently running Langston League. We're a multi-consultant firm, 14 of us now. In 2016, it was just 2 of us in a cafe across the street from my house in a dream. And
Wow.
it was really born from just being frustrated with the instructional materials that I was given, you know, to teach my children. So, you know, I have many educator friends who are in the same predicament. And it's not that they don't want to teach decolonized material. It's not that they don't want to teach, you know, nuanced text and new curriculum alongside the old instruction, because some of it is pertinent, right? But the reality is we have structures in place, right? There are systems in place that prevent them from doing so. When you're an educator in the classroom for 45 minutes and you've been given a particular unit or lesson to teach and someone says they're coming in to watch and your job is dependent upon that, right? At that point, I can't blame the educator, right? At that point, I'm like, I see, right? And I have the privilege as someone who doesn't have to provide for a family in that way or, you know, be home by a certain time. Like I had the privilege to kind of push back. Right. And so I tell folks all the time that sort of activism, right, there's a privilege in that. I was in the teacher's lounge, like, I'm not reading this book on my kids next year. And you can fire me if you want to, but I'm going to tell you why this is racist, or I'm going to tell you why this doesn't reflect the kids that we serve, or I'm going to tell you what could be better. Right. And so I had the ability to do that. But that speaking up in the lounges, it wasn't enough for me. During the professional developments, it wasn't enough. And so I said, how can I do this on a larger scale? And that's what Langston League is, right? It is a ton of educators who have a similar ideology and who believe that our instruction should be decolonized. It should be culturally responsive, and it should feature our children, and it should be holistic, right? And so there are no alt history, right? History is dynamic, and it changes as we find new things. And so honestly, that's really where we are right now. We started out doing everything. We were working with 10 companies. Some of our consultants work with, they delve into coding and robotics. And they make that more culturally responsive. Some of our consultants delve into, you know, the text they want kids to be reading in these English courses. But as of late, we've really been pushing into history instruction. And so what that looks like today is I have a client, they're called Movers and Shakers, Glenn and Idris, 2 Black men, 2 Haitian Black men. They're at the forefront of this company. They are creating augmented reality for that uplifts Black and brown narratives in history, underrepresented narratives. And so
Pause.
they're releasing this.
Wait, hold on, Erica. What is augmented reality versus AI?
Right. Okay. So artificial intelligence is just, you know, like your smartphone or different, your computer and the intelligence that's built in. But augmented reality is literally what it sounds like, to augment your reality. So if you have, let's say, like a good example of this is the Pokemon Go app, right? So I can open this app up with my god kids and we're playing. And essentially what you see is you see your living room, but then suddenly there's a Pokemon on your couch. You just augmented your reality. Right? Suddenly there's something there that wasn't there before through the construct in your phone. And so what they're doing with this particular app is you can be in your living room and you can be walking down 125th Street during the Harlem Renaissance, right? And you can be engaging with people that were prominent then, or just, you know, everyday folk, and they can be talking to you about, you know, what their experience is. They can be talking to you about Florence Mills, or, you know, you could be in the 1950s talking about Ernestine Tiny Davis at her club that she had. And so they are delving into these narratives that are very underrepresented in a very unique way that's going to engage our kids. And so my crew has been, you know, writing dialogue, going into primary sources, interrogating the secondary sources and saying, this is not true. We can't find information that supports this, but this is true. And let's put this into the game. And providing, you know, questions that push students to say, wait a minute, how do I know this is true? Who wrote this? What was the purpose of this, right? Things that are textbooks all along. And so, yeah, we have movers and shakers. We also work with a few schools on redesigning their history instruction. We just closed out a round with Because of Them We Can. They build Black history subscription boxes for students from K to 5. And we also, you know, are just released Decolonize this summer, which is a Black history middle school series that features me as the host, talking about underrepresented narratives. I'm actually filming right now, which is why I have on my like jacket, which is literally in my logo, like the little animation is wearing a jacket, where I have conversations with students about stories that they should be hearing in their classrooms. So that's what our work looks like every day.
Erica Buddington, mostfireteacher.com. Most Fire Teacher, I agree. And you can follow her at Erica Buddington on Twitter. Langston Hughes, you got a picture over your head with him smoking a cigarette, which is probably how we see him a lot. Your company is named after him. Why? Why Langston?
Oh, it's so layered. It's so layered. So my mother read Langston. She says she's been reading Langston since the womb. She takes full credit for this. But as a kid, you know, she'd cook and she'd say, okay, let's go. And, you know, we were reading Mother to Son, we were reading Dream Deferred, and we talked about the different themes that showed up. You know, my favorite poem by Langston is Theme for English B, where he talks about his experience at Columbia University, being in a creative writing course. And he's the only Black student, right? And talking about an assignment that he has to work on. And so, of course, I would be attached to that because I'm an educator. But my mom, you know, she's a Langston fan. And so growing up, I was just always obsessed with finding out, like, I work in Harlem now. Where did he walk? Like, where did he live? And I would find out all these really interesting things. You know, he's interred in a medallion on the floor of the Schomburg. His ashes are interred there. Right, I found out that his brownstone is on 127 between 5th and Madison. So I'm a 20-year-old who just started her first job at Harlem Children's Zone. And I'm like, his house is 2 blocks. Okay, I'll see y'all later. I'm gonna have my lunch on these steps, right? And, you know, just very infatuated with his work. I've read everything from his simple stories to his plays to his, you know, his fissure with Zorno, everything. And so it just, for me, when I was struggling through this instructional piece, like, how can I bring the work that is necessary for the Black children, the Latinx children that I'm serving, right? His name just kept coming to mind. And then I came across this story. The story is about a garden that he has in the front of his house. And so the neighborhood kids were running through his garden and trampling his flowers. And he's like, oh, come on. Like, so what he decided to do was, with the help of a, you know, botanist that lived nearby, he decided to start a story time program at this garden. And then he also had the students plant their own, the kids in the neighborhood plant their own plant and put a little stake with their name on it and say, listen, this plot is now your responsibility. And so there was a profile done of him a few years later, and the garden was magnificent, and the kids took responsibility. And I just said to myself, right, like, you know, everything I read about Langston, he's always thinking about our kids, the Black boy. He's talking about the Youth Councils of America when he's writing about the NAACP. He's talking about, you know, his garden and how they trampled it. And okay, well, let's just, you know, get them involved with it. And while they're here, let me read. And he's at the height of his fame at this point. Let me just sit in my garden and read with the kids and kick back with them. It ain't no thing, right? To me, that work is the work I wanted to do. And so I said to myself, Langston League. Right, like he was gonna put a bunch of Avengers together, right? And it was gonna be about the kids. Definitely was.
I love that. How can people who are listening right now, if there are folks that are thinking about homeschooling, which I think a lot of parents are thinking about that, which I so much encourage, in addition to, if there are educators out there, folks that are principals, because there are a lot of principals listening to this, people who want to run a school or start a school, how can they connect with the Langston League to get this curriculum?
So many people it just starts out with an email, right? And they send us their vision, and no vision is too big or too small for us, right? So many of our clients just sent us an email and said, I have this crazy thing I'm thinking of. I have homeschool moms who are homeschool collectives that are reaching out to me and saying, I have this crazy idea. And I'm like, not crazy, not at all. What you're thinking is phenomenal. And let me help you, let our consultants help you. And sometimes, we can connect you with someone else who's doing the work. Right. So we have other programs like Woke Kindergarten, which is run by Akia Gross. They do phenomenal work with kindergarten students. We don't work with kindergarten students, but we'll say, we might not be able to do this, but we know someone who can. And that's the power of a collective, right? Is that we're all connected. And honestly, there's so much out there, right? So I currently design instruction for Reconstructing US, and they are a platform that designs unapologetically Black instruction with, tutors that are predominantly African-American tutors, and students can just log on and they can take a class for 5 weeks on spoken word called Little Speakers Union for 4th and 5th grade, or, they can take the Reconstruction canon courses that delve into, texts that you wouldn't necessarily see on our text list in our school. So they can read Yagyasi's Homecoming, or they can delve into, I'm trying to think of another class. They have a class called Digits, and they're talking about algorithms in math in the lower grades, like K-5. Like, that's absolutely phenomenal. And it's blackity, black, right? And so one of the founders is Kaya Henderson, the former chancellor of DC schools. And so that's something, like, essentially right now, you can design your own instruction and you can start to interrogate what your children have been given. And the ways that you can do that, like, some have a paywall, but some do not. So for instance, as I said before, we're doing this Black history series called Decolonize, and there's no paywall on that. Like, it's free. I put my ring light up, put my coat on, and I delve into all of these different resources. And on my Instagram, I just, go over all of these random things that I feel are pertinent to our kids learning in the classroom. So right now, I'm doing an episode on Benson, Alabama. And Benson, Kawalaja, Alabama is a Black town that is now Lake Martin, Alabama, right? And so when you think about it, you're like, wait a minute, how does a town become a lake? These are the questions we need to start asking. And so when Lake Lanier started trending this summer, and everyone was like, well, what happened at Lake Lanier, right? It was once a Black town, and there was this racial cleansing that happened in the 1940s. I said, it's not the only one. When Lovecraft Country, everyone was talking about Tulsa, and, oh, I can't believe it. I said, it's not the only one, right? I'm really excited to start having conversations about these Reconstruction era towns where there was a lot of collectivism and triumph happening amongst our people. And how did they magically become lakes or, disappear? Things just don't disappear. There's stories behind that. And I think that instruction is important too. We in middle school instruction, we hop over Reconstruction. It's a blip in the material. And I think it's a gateway to a lot of things that are happening right now.
It is the most important.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Because, even Color Money, Mercer Barandaran's book, Reconstruction was the thing that destroyed Black everything. You had, during Reconstruction, more Black politicians, which means Black people understood the power of the vote. They voted, they came out, they elected people to not just the House of Representatives, to the Senate. I think there was one Black governor, not a Black governor. It was 2 Black senators, a bunch of reps, not just Tulsa, as you mentioned. There were 19. There was what was that? The Red Summer. 19 self-made Black towns destroyed by racism. 19 during one summer, and then the next year was Tulsa. So you think about, like, during the Spanish flu, like, it's crazy. Y'all had enough energy to decimate whole ass communities as y'all recovering from a Spanish flu. But this is America, and I think if we're going to stay here, we have to understand what she is. If we're going to stay here and build, I was telling somebody, I'm building around racism. I'm building around it. I'm not engaging with it. We're going to build around it because we can. Now the goal is to put like a Star Wars system of protection around the things that we build. And I think it starts here. And I think it starts with a knowledge of self and what we can do. So what you're doing is so important. It is so important.